Sure.
I'm not seeing the Facebook Live option. I wonder if I did something in the settings. Let me check in the settings.
Okay. I feel like we just celebrated the first.
We have about 15 people registered.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Click more. I'm not seeing the more button on my menu. Which I don't understand. I always have the more button.
I have it on the right hand side of my screen, and it says live on, and I've clicked it and it says live on Facebook.
Can you click live on Facebook so it starts going up there? Oh, you must be the host, Taisha.
Okay. So I have so it's not.
Can you make me the host?
Sure. Hold on one second.
Thanks. That explains it. Yep, there we go. Thank you. Oh no.
Hold on.
Or you can just post it to Facebook. I'm fine with that too.
No, do you want to know what happened? It's asking me to log in, and I don't have the login information for ours.
That's okay. I've got live on Facebook now. Thanks. You got me there.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I guess we're still in New Year mode. I apologize.
In 1949, Lasorda was acquired by the Dodgers. He pitched 8 games for the team, but set the foundation for one of baseball's longest relationships. When the storied franchise moved to LA in 1957, the Dodgers had more than the most. It had the protagonist baseball needed to thrive in Hollywood. I think Tommy was.
Hey.
Hey.
How are you?
Good, good.
Good to see your face.
I know yours too. Let me get my headset together. I got my little. Maybe you'll be able to listen to your thing. Oh, it's streaming live on Facebook.
Okay, I think we are now live on Facebook.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
All right. I'm checking.
And then Taisha, if you can just monitor the Facebook chat, that would be great.
No problem.
Thanks for coming, Meredith.
No problem. Happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah. Hi, Brenda.
People are going to be confused that there's two Taisha Martins on here.
Double trouble.
She gave me her name for the day.
Oh, does that help you with the screen share probably?
Oh, I don't know. It was just the link.
Oh,
When I opened
Oh,
with the
that's
link,
right.
it said
gotcha.
it must have been assigned to her.
It must have been assigned.
That's all right.
You can change it if you want. I think if you,
I'm good.
okay.
I know it's about 5 after. Let's give it just 1 or 2 more minutes. We did have about 15 people. And I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance to log on.
Sure.
But I obviously don't want to keep people waiting too long either. So.
Uh, Maybe we can start with the screen share and such just to get ready.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Do you want me to share the screen now?
Yeah, why don't we do?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you guys see everybody down the side? Like
Mhm.
I've got the
Yeah.
stuff on the window that kind of,
Yeah, and I think it's going to be my screen, Jenna, that goes onto Facebook, and I do see everybody on the side.
Okay.
All right, it's 7 after. I think we should probably get started. Are you feeling ready, Jenna?
sure.
Excellent. And people will join us, and we're live on Facebook too. So welcome everybody. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for coming to our third Financial Friday series. I think there'll be a strong push to offer more of these webinars moving forward. This program sponsored by the Onondaga Cash Coalition, and we'll tell you a little bit more about their services at the end of the program. But first and foremost, the Cash Coalition supports the VITA Tax Prep program, which is providing free tax preparation services to Onondaga County residents who are lower income. So please be aware of those services. We are also Jenna is the head of the Financial Empowerment Centers, which is a city program. It's free financial services to city members. So please be aware of that. My name is Andrea Wandersee. I'm the executive director of NEDA. My staff is here today and help pull some of this together. Taisha Martin, our program director, Lori Tape, our housing advisor, and Sarah Tucker's our new program assistant. So thank you guys for being here. Jenna McClave is our speaker today, and she's got a great background and a lot of expertise. Jenna's the manager of the Syracuse Financial Empowerment Center, and she's also employed by Home Headquarters. She's been there for over 13 years. She's a HUD certified housing counselor, and she's a certified financial counselor through the Cities for Financial Empowerment. So she's got a great background, lots of expertise. She'll be sharing some of that with us today. Jenna, why don't you go to the next slide? I think there might be housekeeping. Yeah. So you are welcome to put questions in the chat. or in the Facebook page. I think Tisha will be watching that. We do have you muted just for background noise and echoes and things, but you are welcome to ask questions at the end of the workshop. You know, if you've got a question and you want to throw it out there, depending on how Jenna wants to interact, we can certainly work with that. So definitely want to have some questions and answers. And most importantly, if you have some personal financial issues that you want to delve in with somebody much deeper, we'd want to refer you to the Financial Empowerment Center because they're just doing great work. All right, Jenna. Oh, sorry, our sponsors, yes. I mentioned the Cash Coalition. Members of the Cash Coalition include the Financial Empowerment Centers, Jobs Plus, Lemoyne College, Cooperative Federal Credit Union, Syracuse University, Peace Incorporated, the IRS, the United Way, UMIA, Visions Federal Credit Union, Fidelis Care, and NIDA. I'm not going to read this one. This one's here, but okay. The Cash Coalition is all about improving your financial health and building assets.
So this is all of my contact information that they were kind enough to put up here. So if anyone wanted to take a screenshot of that, I will have a slide at the end of my presentation for how to reach out and schedule a session with a financial counselor through the FEC as well. Thank you, Andrea, and everybody over at NIDA for having me. This is wonderful. Like she said, I am with the Syracuse Financial Empowerment Center. It is a city service. I do work for home headquarters, and that's who I've been with for 13 years. And we are helping with the city to offer the program. So what our counselors can help with, the four main areas that we focus on, of course, there's lots of in between, are increasing savings, access to safe and affordable bank accounts, decreasing debt, and raising credit scores. So today I've been asked to talk to you about debt relief and credit. I am going to focus mostly on credit because the debt relief sort of happens along with that. And in order to really help folks with reducing debt and coming up with a plan for that, we really need to look over the credit reports first in order to come up with a plan. So I like to start with the definition of actual financial empowerment. It does come when you feel in charge of your financial life and you're confident in your ability to make good choices, whatever directions that takes you. So you don't have to, it doesn't mean being rich. It doesn't mean having all of your stuff together, but it means that you have enough of control over your financial life that you do feel confident that you're making smart choices for yourself and for your household. We want everyone to feel that way. So I chose this graphic for credit because there are so many questions and so many things about it that are still a mystery, I think, even to the people who developed it. And it's a topic I could spend all day on, but I'm just going to cover the bare basics and just know that if you do come in to sit with a counselor, we do go through your credit report line by line with you. So I'm going to explain a little bit of what that would be like. First, we want to know what is credit. A lot of people don't even understand really what that means. And it is the ability of a consumer to obtain goods or services before payment based on the trust that payment will be made in the future. So you're borrowing money. This is not money that's being given to you. You are borrowing money and you are promising to pay that back, usually with interest. Depending on what it is and who you're getting that credit from, it could be some very, very high interest. So knowing what it is before getting it is really important. Credit history is your record of how responsible you are with repayment of your debts. So your credit history is held with any lender, any creditor that is out there. They have that history of what your payments have been like, good or bad. Your credit report is this record of your credit history from many, many different sources. So it's from places like banks, credit card companies, collection agencies, government agencies, depending on what's going on there. So their credit report shows everything from everywhere that you have that credit history. The four main parts of a credit report are, one is the identifying information, and we do go through all of this because sometimes we'll see people that have wrong or even just misspelled identifying information that could cause some trouble in the future. So we help with getting that corrected. But your identifying information is just your name, your social security number, any addresses that have been tied to your credit, your birth date, and your employer. It could be a past employer. So you may open up your credit report and see someplace that you worked 10 years ago. That's just the last employer that they had reporting on there. So there are some instances where we see addresses where someone has never lived at before. The social security number, there may be additional social security numbers that are tied to an individual on their report. This does not necessarily mean that there is anything else that is wrong on your report, that there's any accounts out there that are incorrect that aren't yours. It just means that somewhere at some point in time, that was connected to you on an application somewhere, and it made its way to your report. And we can ask to have certain things removed so that they don't get confused with other people's information. The next portion of the credit report is public record information. And normally it used to be liens, foreclosures, judgments, and bankruptcy. But in the past, I think it's about 2 years now, my sense of time has been all screwed up with this pandemic. So I think it's been about 2 years now that that's been changed, and only bankruptcies are showing up as public record on the actual credit report. Any judgments or liens that you have are still out there, but they're not being reported to the credit bureaus. When you come in for a session, if you know that you have a judgment, wages are being garnished for something out there, again, that's something that doesn't show up. That is something that we do have access to if that has been within Onondaga County. So we can look up if there's any liens or judgments against you and help you with those debts as well. But what will show up on your credit report is just past bankruptcy. Next is the real meat of your credit report, all of the credit history information and your trade lines. So these are all of the accounts that you have open that have not aged to the point where they fall off. So people have all heard, oh, it'll fall off in 7 years. That's for things that are closed. And certain things will stay on a little bit longer, but generally that rule of thumb is 7.5 years. It stays on your credit report. So anything that you've had on there, even if it's been paid, you haven't used it in years, it's still going to show up because that is still part of your credit history. I've had a lot of people who are like, why is that still on there? Even if it was something that was a positive, it's something that they paid off. They feel like if it's been paid off, it should be off. It shouldn't be on there anymore, but it will stay on so that lenders are able to see that history. So those are going to be all kinds of loans, student loans, personal loans, home loans, any type of loan that you have gotten that's not, a personal private loan through family and friends and things like that. Credit cards or lines of credit, and there's a difference between those two things. So if you're somebody who has a line of credit compared to a credit card from, say, a credit union, that is something that you really need to understand what that's for. And those are things that we go over with you if you happen to have those. The history information, again, is going to include anything that's negative. So you may have everything positive and current right now, but if in your history you defaulted on something that you have reinstated, like a student loan, or if you've had negative payment information, you had some late payments in the past, but you've been current for the last year, it's still going to show when you've had some late payments in the past, but it will also show that time frame between when you had that negative information and what you've done since then. So the report really tells your story, and depending on what your history has been is going to determine whether that's a a positive or a negative story. And then derogatory accounts, collections, charge-offs, things like that are all going to show up in that main part of your actual physical report. And the last thing you'll see is the inquiries. So anytime that you are applying for credit, you are asking, you are filling out an application, or you're applying over the phone, over the computer, anything like that, that is going to be a hard inquiry and that will affect your credit score. If you are looking at your own credit, that's considered like a soft pull. That does not show up even as an inquiry when you look at your own credit. When we do a credit pull through the FEC, it is a soft pull, which means that because it's being used not to offer you credit, but to offer you counseling, that is called a soft pull, so it does not affect your scores. You may see soft pull inquiries listed on your credit report when you go to pull that yourself, but the only inquiries that lenders are going to see are the hard inquiries that do affect your credit scores. And I'm sure people are probably coming up with some questions and things they want to talk about. There will definitely be some time at the end, but I'm hoping that getting through these slides will at least answer some of the questions that you might have right up front. So why is credit so important? It drives us all nuts. Why do we have to have it? There's so many things in this country where it's based on your credit, and you need to have that credit in good standing in order to be able to do certain things like buying a car, renting an apartment, buying a house, definitely, starting up a business, keeping your business, getting a job, and even opening up a bank account. So with buying a car, I laugh at that one because I've had so many people say, well, I know my credit's good, I just bought a car. That doesn't mean anything. Your credit can be tanked and you can still buy a car. That's why they have all those lovely commercials out there. But it could be something where as long as you're making good payments, that can help you out in the end. But so your credit does not have to be stellar necessarily to buy a car, but you can still do it. Renting an apartment, now for these things, they're not necessarily buying a car, buying a house, that sort of thing. Yes, they're going to look at your score as well as what's in the report, but renting an apartment, getting a job, those are things where they're not looking at that 3-digit number that we're all so focused on. They're looking at why is it that 3-digit number? What makes it that number? So they're looking at those trade lines and they're looking to see specifically, like when you're renting an apartment, have you ever had a collection or a judgment with a place that you've rented from before? They're going to look at your past behaviors based on what's in the credit report to determine whether or not you're going to be worth that risk to them. So they use it more as a risk factor tool. But buying a house, buying a car, obviously you're going to need to have that score up there. Myths busted. I love busting myths. And there are so many myths out there about credit. I've only chosen a handful here. But one is that a bad credit score is forever. And that is absolutely false. I have had people who've come through with 400 credit scores in the beginning and are still coming through, but are now in the upper 600s or 700 scores. You can have a really bad score, but as long as you have the determination and the discipline and you understand that it's going to take time, you can absolutely turn that credit around and you can get the things that you've wanted to have that have been restricted from you because of your credit. And I always say, if you make sure that you understand that it takes time, there is never a quick fix for your credit. There's nothing going to be fast about it other than negative stuff going on to that report. Negative stuff going on always happens very fast. Trying to fix things and make things more positive always takes more time. Checking your credit report will hurt your score. Wrong. When you check your own credit report, you have the right, every individual has the right to get access to their free credit report. That is your information. you need to know that the information that is listed there is correct. And I'm going to give you the site to go to check on those reports and let you know how to do that. But when you check your own credit, that absolutely does nothing to your score. It's not, I don't believe it even shows up as a soft pull inquiry because you're doing that. You can't give yourself credit. And you're really only looking at it to see what's on there. And again, when we pull it for counseling purposes, that's considered a soft pull, but that will show up when you do your own pull. It will show up as an inquiry, but it'll show up as an inquiry that does not affect your scores, as opposed to a list of inquiries that do affect your scores. So you can absolutely check your credit reports, and I'll tell you exactly where and how to do that in a few minutes. Your education level can affect your credit score. That's a negative too. The only information that will affect your credit score is your credit history, how you have paid on your credit accounts. In that identifying information portion, yes, it has your name, it has your social, it'll have your addresses and where you've worked. It does not say your gender, your sex, your religious preference, your race, your national origin. None of that comes into effect, so that your credit, it can't be discriminatory. That report is based solely on what has gone into that report based on your credit history. Where it can have a bad effect is if you end up either a victim of identity theft and someone else uses your information, so it's not really your history, or I totally forgot what I was just going to say. That's embarrassing on Facebook Live. So nothing is going to affect that other than what you do, or if you have been a victim of identity theft or something has been wrongfully put onto your report. And those are things that we can help you to dispute. But I don't want anyone to feel that your education level or anything, even if they can see your student loans, yeah, someone can know that you went to college, but nobody's going to even know if you graduated or what you graduated with or anything like that. So there's no way of people seeing that information. You can't get credit unless you have a lot of money. Totally wrong. You do have to have some money in order to be granted credit, because the creditors need to know that you're going to be able to pay back what it is that you've borrowed. But you do not have to make a lot of money to do that. And what I have found to be kind of ironic is a lot of the people who make a lot of money have the lower credit scores. And people who have very little money tend to, a lot of them tend to have very good credit. It's because they're really careful with what little they've got. And a lot of times when we have more, we tend to spend more. So there can be a lot more of that negative behavior there. But just because you have a lot of money does not mean that you're going to have good credit, and vice versa. All credit and debt are the same. Absolutely not. So I'm not focusing on debt today, but there are different types of debt. There's secured debt that you'll see on your credit report, and those are loans or credit cards that have some form of collateral, whether it's your car, your house, or if you have a secured credit card, then it's your cash. Those are the things that will be taken back if you don't end up paying for that debt. And then credit is based on what those debts are. So there are different types of credit as well. There's installment credit or installment debt that you might end up having to pay back. But installment credit are your loans, things that you're paying the same amount every single month until that's paid off. And then you have revolving credit, which is credit cards, lines of credit, something that you use, you pay it back, and you're able to use it over and over again. FICO. FICO scores, I'm sure everybody has heard of FICO. It's the Fair Isaac credit. I can't remember the last two letters, but it's the Fair Isaac scoring. Even within FICO, there are very many different scoring models within FICO. So your FICO score will change based on who's pulling it, when and how. or why. So you could potentially apply for a car, a house, insurance, and a credit card all on the same day and have 4 different FICO scores. So it's really important for me to stress that, yes, your 3-digit score may need to be a certain amount in order to get something, but I want to shift people's focus away from those 3 digits to what is in the report and how can we get those digits to move. It's really important to understand how what we do affects that score. So FICO scores are made up of 5 different sections. 35% of the score, the majority of your FICO score, is your payment history. So have you paid your bills on time? While this is the largest percentage of your score, so it will take the most points away if you make a negative payment or you make a late payment. It's also the longest to recover from because it takes a full year of consecutive on-time payments to get back all of those points that you lost. So you want to make sure first and foremost that you make all of your payments on time. The next big chunk, these 2 are the biggest. Next big chunk, 30% of your score, so almost as heavily hitting, is credit utilization. So this is where how much do you owe on your credit cards, your balances, how much are those compared to how much you have available to you to use. So the higher your balance is, the closer you get to maxing out on a credit card's limit, the lower your score is going to be. So the best thing you can do for your score is to use your cards and pay the balance off in full every single month. If you are not able to do that, then the sweet spot is to have that balance within 30% of the limit on the card. So if it's $1,000 card, you don't want your balance that's remaining after you've made your payment, you don't want the balance remaining to be higher than $300. If it's a $500 limit, you don't want the balance to be higher than $150. And that way your score is going to stay up. Once your balance reaches 50% of that limit, your score is dropping. It's dropping a little before then, but that's where you're really going to see the score drop. And then the closer you get to maxing out that limit, the harder and the faster your score will drop. What's great about the credit utilization compared to the payment history, even though it's almost as much of your score, is that with payment history, it's going to take you a full year to recover from even 1 late payment. But with credit utilization, as soon as you pay down those balances on the high balance cards that you have, and those credit companies report that to the credit bureaus, your score is going to jump right back up. So you don't have to wait a certain amount of time. You only have to wait until they actually report that new balance to the credit bureaus. So while, we might see that our scores are doing sort of a roller coaster, that's going to happen based on how we use our credit cards, where you're going to see it really dip. You get your stomach come up into your throat sort of roller coaster is when you have that late payment, and it's really going to take you a long time. You like my visuals? I see you're laughing there. So the next 3 things definitely have an impact, but not as much as those first 2 as far as what we do to contribute to what that score is. 15% is your length of history. The longer you have an account open and in good standing, the better your scores are going to be. So when you hear about people having an 850 credit score, it's because they've had really good credit for a really long time. So if you are thinking of closing anything out, please sit and talk with one of the counselors before you do that, because it will have a negative impact on your score, at least at first. But if something has to be closed, there is a way to do that so that hopefully it won't hurt your score as much. And you definitely don't want to close out if it's in good standing. You don't want to close out something that has that longest length of history, or else you will see a drop in your score as soon as that's closed out. But keeping things open is really important. This is why if someone has only ever had loans, I will talk to them about opening up a credit card. And I know a lot of people are petrified of opening up their first credit card because they kind of know themselves and they're afraid that they're going to end up in that credit trap. and that's okay. But if you are looking at the ways to best increase your credit so that you have the best opportunities later on, that is something to consider doing. Mainly because the next 10% of your score is your types of credit. So you have the installment credit, which is the loans. You have the revolving credit, which is your credit cards, lines of credit. When you have both types of credit in there, that actually helps to boost up your scores. When you have different types of loans, you have a home loan, you have a personal loan, you have a school loan, and you're able to be positive with all of those, that's actually going to help boost you up. So having at least a revolving credit card and a loan out there is a good thing. If someone has only ever had loans, yes, I will talk to them about opening a credit card to help with this. But if somebody has only ever had credit cards and never had a loan, I don't really talk to them about going and getting a small loan to help boost it up, only because a loan gets paid off and then that closes. And then you have to go and get a new loan. So if, maybe they were thinking of getting a car, something that's going to be open for a number of years before it's paid off, so you have that length of history that comes along with it, that's going to be different. But there have been some people who've gone out and, tried to boost up their credit by getting a little $500 loan here. And then as soon as they pay it off, getting another one. So their credit is constantly going to be doing this again with those loans, because they're opening the loan, they're paying it off, it's closing, they're opening a new loan and paying it off. And it affects so many different things. And the last 10% of your score is new credit. So this is when you are going out and you're applying for credit. You have new accounts that are showing up, which could end up increasing your credit utilization. If you open up a card and immediately there's a balance on it, or you have a new loan, that's new debt. It's going to affect your length of history. So it will affect that other 15%, but it also adds on an inquiry, which also affects your scores. So anytime that you are opening up new credit, even if it's a positive thing, you may see a dip in your score at first because you had the inquiry, you're adding new debt on. But as soon as you start making payments on that debt, you're going to start to see that credit score is going to start climbing back up. Now, FICO is not the only scoring system that's out there, and I'm going to explain to you the difference between different scoring systems in the next slide. But how do you monitor your own credit? The site everyone should be using is annualcreditreport.com, right up here, annualcreditreport.com. The only source for your free credit reports. Do not fall for lookalikes. The free credit report, they had a really cool pirate jingle commercial out there for a while, but that's not the one you want to use. You want to use annualcreditreport.com. So like I said before, every individual has the right to one free report from each of the three bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Every 12 months, you have the right to get one free report from each of those three bureaus. Now that we are in COVID, if you go onto this site, you're going to see a nice red banner, I think it's red, at the top that lets you know that while we are in the pandemic, you are actually allowed now to get your free report every week through the end of this April of 2021. So you can go in and you can actually request all three bureaus every single week if you wanted to do that. So when you go in and you click on this request your free credit reports, you can check off which bureau you want. You can do all three of them. After April, if that doesn't get extended, what you'll want to do is pull from one of those three bureaus every 4 months and just have that on a regular rotating schedule so that you can constantly see what is in that report. They will not give you your score for free on this site. You can buy it if you want to, but don't spend your money on doing that. Just look and make sure that the information that is in those reports is correct. They're going to ask you questions that are based on what is in your actual credit report to confirm that you are who you say you are. It is kind of a pain, but it's their security and making sure that you're the right person. So no matter how well you think you know your credit, you could still get some of those questions wrong based on how they ask them. And in that instance, they'll tell you, sorry, we can't give you your report on the computer today, but we can have you submit this form to have it mailed to you within 5 days. Go ahead and do that. I also have the copy of that form. It does need to be filled out very particularly. They're really strict with it. I think they must pass it through one of the machines to read it. But you can go ahead and request to have it sent to you in the mail. If you do get it on the computer, all we ask is that you be sure that you save it somewhere or print it if you're able, and just know when you print your own, they're going to be many, many pages long. So if you can save it to a thumb drive or something like that, where you're able to share it with your counselor, because we can only see your Experian report. That's the only account that we have to do that through the FEC. It's good for us to be able to also see what's on your TransUnion and your Equifax reports. So definitely go and do this, whether you come in to see us or not. Go in there. If you find any issues that are on your reports, don't start calling people. Call one of us so that we can help you to figure things out, because the second you reach out and make contact with some of these folks, you could be opening up a whole new can of worms for yourself. We don't want that to happen. Another way that you can monitor your credit is using something like Credit Karma. So Credit Karma, I use it myself. I think it's a great tool as long as it's used wisely. It is free for everyone. The reason why it's free is they have all of these sponsors that are on here that offer you see the lineup here for recommendations. So based on your credit, you can click on recommendations and they'll tell you, oh, well, you can get this loan for $10,000 to pay off your revolving credit. You can get this. If you pay off this loan, you could end up boosting your score by 12 points. All of these things, just ignore that stuff. If you are going to apply for credit, let it be something that you are seeking out, that you're researching. Don't let it be when something like this is saying, hey, we have this recommendation for you. Doesn't necessarily mean it would be a bad thing, but you could get into something that you really shouldn't. But use this to monitor your TransUnion and your Equifax reports. And that's another reason why I let everybody know about it, because if you're not going into the annualcreditreport.com, or if it's at a time where we can only do it every 12 months and not every week, like during the pandemic, this is a good way to keep track of those other two reports that we're not able to pull. You will find that the scores may be very, very different from the FICO score that we give you through Experian. The scores are probably going to be different across all three bureaus anyway, but they should be pretty similar. Where you may find that between Credit Karma and what we pull, or if you did pay for your annual credit report to give you the score, you're going to see probably a much bigger difference, because the scoring system Credit Karma uses is called the Vantage score. And the Vantage score is not the same type of model as the FICO score. So FICO is made up of five different sections that make up your score, where the Vantage score, I think, is like 7 or 8. So all of the things that are weighed in FICO to get your score are also in Vantage, but they take a couple of other things. So the things that are heavy under FICO are not as heavy under Vantage. So it could appear that you have a better score on Credit Karma because it's just that different scoring system. So if you see that you have a 718 or a 726, like is up here, and you come to see me and it says you have a 626, it doesn't mean that your score dropped 100 points. It just means that that's that difference between those two scoring systems. Lenders tend to use the FICO score. So if you are using Credit Karma, just know if you see the score going up or down, you can pretty much bet that your FICO score is doing the same thing. You just don't know what the exact number is. But they do give you all of the information that is on your TransUnion and your Equifax reports. So you're able to monitor accounts that have opened, accounts that have closed, late payments, all of that stuff. You can set it up to send you notifications. So it really is a good monitoring tool just don't fall for all the recommendations. And remember that that score is going to be different. So don't yell at us when we tell you what the score is that we see. So I don't even know what time it is right now.
It's 12:45.
Oh, perfect. So I went through that pretty quickly, but this is, again, all of the information for being able to reach out to us to schedule a session. We have 5 counselors now, myself and Tom Delwo, who works with Cooperative Federal. We're both part-time, but we do have 3 full-time counselors. And our newest just joined us, and she's actually going to be working with the DSS, the Onondaga County DSS. So while it is a city program, we now have the county is involved, and they will end up with a co-location, and she will be there once things open up. Right now she's at home. So we do have a good number of counselors to choose from, but you can call the main number at home headquarters is 474-1939 extension 5. That will go directly to the FEC line. You'll hear my voice. The FEC at homehq.org. That also really comes directly to me. And then my direct email is jennam@homehq.org. Or you can visit our website at syracusefec.org. Either you can call, you can email and request an appointment, or you can go on to that website and there is a request an appointment button that is on there. And you just fill that out. Again, that comes to me. I get all of the new intakes of people and then assign them accordingly once we figure out what works best for your schedules. So I am ready to open up for questions. Do you keep the screen up?
You can probably bring the screen down, and that way people can see a bigger. Do we have any questions from the audience? You can also, if you're on Facebook, you can type it in the chat. You're welcome to type in the chat or just unmute yourself. I'm pretty sure you have the opportunity to unmute yourself.
And thank you, Brenda. She did put Fair Isaac Corporation. The CEO is corporation.
She did. And Sarah and Taisha put the annual credit report website, and I've actually gone up and already started processing mine while you were talking. So
there you go.
and just so you guys know, I have gone to the Financial Empowerment Center. I started working with Casmira, and it's a great opportunity to just start looking at your own financial health and, figuring out what some of your own personal goals are. What I love about it is you don't need to be in a particular income range, and you the counselors really work with you on what your personal goals are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no wrong person for the Financial Empowerment Center.
Exactly.
We've had people who are unemployed and trying to figure things out. And then we also, especially now during the pandemic, even more so, but we've also had people with 6-figure income who
are trying to figure
help
things out.
Figuring out what do I pay down first? What do I do? So like I said, financial empowerment does not mean you have a ton of money, but that you get to a point where you know enough of what to do with it that you feel comfortable and confident in the decisions that you're making.
I think one of the interesting points you brought up, you listed a lot of the things that impact your credit score, and it feels like so many of them are negative impacts.
Yes.
One of the big mistakes I made probably 10 years ago is I closed out my oldest account. And, it hit my score, and, you can't go back and open it.
Right.
So this last round, I didn't, when I got some debt cleaned up, I didn't go and close out all those accounts. And it probably has helped me in a couple of different ways. So
we have had a lot of people come through who have taken steps to do things that with good intent to make things better, but it actually did end up making things worse because they might have heard that someone else had done it this way. or, you know, and this happened for this person over here. You can't go by what happens with other people because that's based on their credit history, which is going to be much different from, you know, from anybody else. And everybody's history is completely different. So it's really important to make sure that you are talking with someone who can help you come up with the best plan that's going to have the least impact, negatively, the least negative impact on your score.
Jenna, I have a question from somebody on Facebook.
Sure.
Katie is asking, when you make an appointment, do you help with budgeting while making credit better?
Yes. Yes, we cover every aspect. When you make an appointment, the first session that you have, we do a financial health assessment, and it's a lot of questions, but it helps us to figure out how to steer the conversation and what questions we can ask further based on what your answers are to help us figure out what's the best way to help you specifically. That's why I get a lot of questions where I'm like, we really have to meet in order for me to answer that because everybody's so different. But we do this financial health assessment. We do go over what's called a money tracker. So we go over what your exact income is. We go over all of your expenses. There's a bottom line with monthly income, monthly expenses, what you should have left over. So that tends to be a shocker for a lot of people, and as well as savings. So we help with budgeting, with saving, with, you know, changing bank accounts if you're not satisfied with your current bank accounts. But we've also started taking financial navigation calls. So if people maybe don't want to have a full credit counseling, but they just have a quick question about their finances that's not related to the credit where we don't have to pull that, then we can do that as just a quick, you know, 5 to 15 minute phone call. We haven't had many of those because most of them are, all right, we want to dig deeper and have that full session, which is wonderful. But we cover everything, and we'll go over anything that it is that you need to do. And then we're also, you know, we have referral partners. So even if it doesn't necessarily have to do with your income or your expenses, but you're struggling with something right now, we may be able to refer you to somebody else out in the community. So there might be questions that we ask in a life needs assessment about, you know, there's one question of, you know, are any addictions that may be in the household being handled properly, or do you need assistance with that? So it may seem like some of the questions that we might ask don't really have to do with why you initially came, but we do find that a lot of times with these sessions, they turn into sort of a life coaching session because it's a lot of things have to do with money. And a lot of negative behavior and negative feelings tend to stem from money. So we do help a lot with everything that we can, and we don't just leave it there. We're going to basically hold your hand through everything and try and get you to the best people to help you with whatever the situation is.
So right now, because of COVID, are you doing one-on-one, or are you doing most of your appointments virtually?
We're doing all appointments virtually right now. We were, two of us were going to be going back into the office at the homeownership center a couple of days a week, but since the numbers have picked back up in the county, we are staying at home. But the good thing about the FEC is that we were pretty much remote anyway, because we have so many different co-locations. All of the counselors were in different spots, different days of the week. So it really hasn't slowed us down at all. And we've really found that a lot of people have shown up more during the pandemic, and having it being remote where they don't have to drive into an office somewhere. It makes things tend to be a lot easier for a lot of people. We are hoping to be face-to-face again soon.
Just a little public service announcement. Nita is the host of one of the Financial Empowerment Center offices.
Yes.
So
yes, we have two of our counselors that prior to this were working out of there at least 2 days a week. So,
any other questions? So you have Jenna's.
And while it is going to be chilly into the early
Did you have something, Brenda?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I am a client of the Financial Empowerment Center, and I've got this great person named Jenna that I work with. And over, I don't know, maybe the past year, I've been able to reduce debt, increase savings, and purchase this, I'm going to say it, this dream vehicle I had been thinking of. And I'm still increasing savings, and I have different unique sort of circumstances than maybe some people, but every person's session is tailored to them. And I think everybody who should look into this, especially since it's a free service. And now that we're virtual, you don't have to find a sitter, whatever, just make that call or that email. And
We
I
love
think
seeing the babies and the dogs
appreciate
on Zoom. We see them all. Yes,
Thank
Brenda
you
was
so
actually
much.
Brenda was actually my very first in-person client. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Cool.
she's my poster child. She's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate you very much.
Thanks,
Hi.
Brenda. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Andra. I have a question. Before I set up my initial session, should I go ahead and get my annual credit report prior to the session, or is that
Sure.
something that we would do once we're together? How does that work?
You can definitely do it ahead of time. I would try and do it if you know, well, maybe reach out to schedule the session. And then once you have it on the calendar, then go to annual credit report, just so that you know that it's going to be really close. You know, they're not a month apart or something like that. We're really going to be seeing the report sort of in the same time. But yeah, absolutely. You can do that, especially now that you're able to do it every week. April,
Okay.
why not?
Exactly.
But yeah, just make sure that you hold on to it, you save it somewhere, because once you close out of it, when you're in that website, once you close out of it, you won't be able to go back. So
Okay.
it would be another week before you're able to pull it again.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And one other question. Thank you. So is there a certain number of sessions, or that's based on a person's individual situation?
That's based on the individual.
Okay.
And not even the situation, that's based on the individual. We've had folks who have, I think the highest number of sessions we've had so far, I believe, is about 16 for one person.
Okay.
So it's like every single month. And then there's other folks who are like, you know what, I'm not going to be able to do much of this for at least a month, 6 weeks. So let's make it 2 months out. So we've had people who have come in once and been like, I'm good. You know, they're like, all right, you gave me information, I'm good, I don't need to come back. And then there's folks who have done everything that they need to and achieved everything, like Miss Brenda, who are still coming through, because just because you get to a good point doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. So making sure that, you know, if there's any questions, anything that comes up, we're always going to be here. So we're not going to close you out unless you tell us, I don't ever want to see you again.
Okay.
We never hear
So
that.
it's not based on like, okay, we set a Wednesday, or it's just based on, okay, this is what you need to do, go get that done, and we'll set up a session prior
Yes,
to that.
and usually
Okay.
before the end of your first session, we're already scheduling your second one. So when you leave a session, you're scheduled for your next one, unless you decide that you're like, no, I think I'll wait.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Can I throw out just a little bit of data
Please
to
do.
try and help people a little, especially those on Facebook? Please share this too, now that the mayor has made our announcements. In the 16 months that the FEC has been open, and given hiccups and everything, slow start in the beginning, we've managed to help over 600 clients to save half of the time being during this pandemic, to save over $500,000 in savings. and decrease debt by over $1.1 million in 16 months. So we're very, very excited about that. Very proud of all of the counselors for the hard work that they've done, and very proud of all of the clients that we've had that have really, this isn't something that we can do for you. We can do it with you. But if you put in that effort and you're really determined,
Yep.
you can do this. So
yeah, and I would say that number might even be a little higher. Like, for example, I've worked with Cassie a couple of times, but I haven't been back to her to tell her how much money I've saved and how much debt I've paid down for a while.
Well, schedule your appointment so we can get those numbers up.
I will. I totally will, because I've actually done a really good job.
Awesome.
So, yeah, and I think, Brenda, I loved your testimonial. I think you said one thing, though, that really struck me was, well, I had a special circumstance. So a couple of years ago, I dumped on Tom Delwell. This was before the financial empowerment centers were there, and we were in another meeting, and I just was like, and I'm like, oh my God, I totally overshared, which I do. And he's like, Andrea, he's like, everybody has something like this, and I did have a special circumstance. And he said, yeah, so do most people. Like, whatever your special circumstance is, your special circumstance. So come and get the help. And it's okay. And also know you're not alone. Like, I think sometimes you feel isolated when you've got all this debt and you've got all this financial worry, and
you're not alone.
You
and there's
alone.
Absolutely no judgment. When you come through and you sit with one of our counselors, there is zero judgment. We're not perfect. I'm 46, giving my age. They say women don't do that. That's a lie.
I do it all the time.
I'm 46. But I'm 46. My father has had an 800 plus credit score as far as I know, my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
They've always had at least a couple $100s. My parents have never been rich by any means, but at least something for some form of emergency in savings.
Mm-hmm.
4 kids, and they never shared that information with us. So it took me until I was nearly 40 to learn this stuff. So in 6 years, that stuff doesn't just go away and change. There's still behaviors that I'm working on. There's still credit issues that I'm working on of my own. So just because we've learned this and we're certified and we can help you to do it does not mean that we're not sitting right there with you. You can never judge a book by its cover. Someone can look like they've got it all together, and they're usually the ones that we see are the messiest. So yeah, don't try and keep up with the Joneses, and don't be afraid. There's no shame. Right. There is no shame, and there is no judgment that comes through here. We actually had a survey that had been done. We took part in this Listen for Good survey, and it was wonderful. And it came back that 100% were stating that they were treated professionally every single time that they were with a counselor. So absolutely no judgment. And we have, no matter how unique the circumstances, we've probably seen it or heard it in one way, shape, or form before. So if we're not dealing with it ourselves.
Thank you, Jenna. Thanks for sharing your expertise.
Welcome.
Thanks for running this awesome program for our city. I'm sort of speaking out of turn a little bit, but I'm assuming the Cash Coalition is going to pull together some more Financial Fridays in the future and some more topics.
I believe so. So we'll see what happens with all that.
Yeah, so we will promote them when they come.
Yeah, it looks like in February we'll be having a Financial Friday to discuss our free tax services. So if anybody's interested in that, it's a great service for anybody in the community. You're more than welcome to come. We're also helping to make appointments with FEC for that. So the first Friday in February, I can't think of the date. If you're interested in learning more about the free tax services and how to make an appointment with the Syracuse FEC, please join us. We'd be more than happy to have you again.
Great, thanks. Wonderful. So thank you everyone for coming. And if you have questions, please contact Jenna at the FEC. Home headquarters website has their phone number. Alrighty, thanks. Take care.
Bye,
Bye, Brenda.
Bye, Brenda. I think that was the end of the questions on.
Oh, I should stop live
Yeah.
streaming and I should stop recording.